Look, I know you feel like you contributed, but at the end of the day, the vision, the brand, the soul of this, that was always me. You were just the hands. Zane's smile didn't reach his eyes. It was a perfect, polished veneer, reflecting the gallery lights above us. The clinking of champagne glasses was the only sound for a moment, a sharp, cold punctuation to the erasure of my life's work. A photographer's flash went off, freezing his triumphant expression. Find the vision was well documented, I said, my voice barely a whisper, and turned away. We met in a brutalist concrete building during our master's program in industrial design, two people convinced we could make furniture that felt alive. Zane had the silver-tongue charm. I had the obsessive technical skill. Our first breakthrough was at the Starlight Diner at 3 a.m., sketching on a napkin a chair that would change color with human touch. He was electric with ideas, a storm of concepts. He was the one who could tame the lightning, who spent 72 hours straight coding the heat-reactive polymers and modeling the joinery in Rhino 3D. A professor once warned me about him after a group project. Zane presented our work as his own, mentioning me as a helpful resource. I dismissed it. I thought he was just better at the spotlight. That was my first mistake. Our collaboration, Auriform, became our world. Golden period was a blur of sawdust, soldering fumes, and shared takeout containers. I remember the October we perfected the thermochromic finish for the dining table, its surface rippling with iridescent color when a warm plate was set down. I remember Zane bringing me coffee at dawn, telling me I was a genius, that no one else saw the world the way I did. He handled the business, the networking, the investors. I was head down in the workshop, my Wacom tablet my closest companion, my hands stained with pigments and resin. The cracks were subtle at first. He started saying my brand instead of our brand. Bring investors to the studio and present my prototypes while I was out on a supply run. I rationalized it. He was the face. I was the engine. It was an efficient division of labor. Then came the small financial cuts. The fabrication budget was tighter than he'd promised. I covered the overages for the rare earth minerals, nearly $25,000 on my own credit cards, because he swore the next funding round was just weeks away. The clue that unraveled everything was an unlocked laptop. It was a Tuesday. Zane was out charming a gallery owner. I needed to find a shipping confirmation and saw an email open on his screen. It was a draft of the press release for our debut show. My name was mentioned once in the final paragraph as a key technical consultant. Not co-creator, not partner, a consultant. My blood ran cold. That night, I bought a 2-terabyte external hard drive and began a meticulous, silent process that would last 11 weeks. Every design file, every email, every receipt, every time-stamped photo of me working alone in the studio late at night, I duplicated it all to a secure Dropbox account. The scale of his deception widened with every folder I copied. It incorporated Auriform LLC 6 months before he'd even told me he was seeking funding, listing himself as the sole proprietor. He must have sensed my unease. A week before the gallery opening, he presented me with a partnership agreement, all smiles and generosity. He was offering me 30%. It's a formality, he'd said, just to get everything on paper for the new investors. I almost signed it. I was so tired of fighting, so desperate to believe the lie. But I saw the incorporation date on the document. It was a trap, designed to legally codify my status as a minor contributor after the fact. I told him I'd have my lawyer look at it. The warmth in his eyes vanished instantly. The breaking point was that gallery opening. In front of Veronica Shaw, the lead critic for Design Monthly, and Mr. Sterling, our biggest potential investor, Zane held court. He spoke of the long, lonely nights he'd spent wrestling with the designs, the personal journey that led to each piece. My pieces. He gestured to the glowing table, the shifting colors of the chairs, the entire collection I had bled for. I'm a storyteller who works in wood and light, he said, his voice thick with false humility. This collection is my autobiography. It's deeply, deeply personal. My work, my soul, made tangible. Must have seen the look on my face, because that's when he walked over, put a condescending hand on my shoulder, and delivered the line about me being just the hands. The detail that he overlooked was the reflection in the gallery's polished chrome window. It showed Mr. Sterling, the investor, watching us, his brow furrowed in quiet concern. The next morning, I was in the office of Ms. Ramirez, a woman whose reputation for intellectual property disputes was legendary. She was sharp, methodical, and wore no jewelry. She listened without interruption for an hour, her pen taking precise notes. When I finished, she looked at the mountain of evidence I'd brought. Patience is a weapon, she told me. We moved slowly, then all at once. Her retainer was $15,000. It was the last of my savings. One night, a week into the process, I almost gave up. Zane texted me, a long, manipulative apology offering a $50,000 buyout to just go away quietly. I stared at the message, the temptation to end the nightmare pulling at me. Ms. Ramirez's voice echoed in my head. I deleted the text without replying. Our case was built on a foundation of undeniable proof. We had 473 dated design files from my personal cloud backup, many created a full year before Zane's LLC existed. He had American Express statements totaling $28,741 for materials and custom fabrication software, all in my name. We had a text thread with 84 messages where Zane called me the architect of the collection. Server logs from our workshop's Wi-Fi router showed every single final design file had been transferred to the fabricators from my laptop's IP address. The ironic coincidence came from Mr. Sterling. Ms. Ramirez, on a hunch, had her paralegal research him. It turned out he was my father's college roommate. He had only agreed to invest because he trusted my family's name was implicitly involved, a fact Zane had conveniently failed to mention. The final trap was a decoy. Our initial legal filing was a simple demand for financial reimbursement. Zane and his slick corporate lawyer walked into arbitration assuming it was a squabble over money. They were unprepared. The arbitration was held in a sterile conference room with a long mahogany table. Zane looked relaxed, almost bored. He gave me a small, pitying smile as we sat down. My lawyer, Ms. Ramirez, began. Before we discuss finances, let's clarify project ownership. Zane's lawyer scoffed and presented the LLC documents, showing Zane as the sole owner. Zane leaned back in his chair, smug. Ms. Ramirez didn't even glance at the papers. She simply nodded to her assistant, who projected a screen onto the wall. The first wave was the financials. A cascade of my credit card statements, receipts, and bank transfers. Zane's lawyer started shifting in his seat. Zane just waved a hand, dismissing it as messy internal accounting. Then came the second wave. Ms. Ramirez calmly narrated as the screen filled with dated CAD files, metadata showing my name as the author. She showed the Wi-Fi server logs, with their damning IP addresses and timestamps. Finally, she played an audio recording of a sworn affidavit from Mr. Sterling. His voice was calm and clear. My investment was contingent on the understanding that this was a partnership, with the creative direction coming from the person I saw working in that studio, until midnight every night. Zane's face went from tan to gray to stark white. He started to speak, a jumble of words about vision and ideas. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, a silent command to stop. Ms. Ramirez looked directly at Zane, her expression unreadable. The hands kept copies, I said. The fallout was swift and silent. The arbitration panel awarded me full intellectual property rights to the Auriform collection and a judgment of $122,000 for unpaid labor, fraud, and material costs. Gallery pulled the exhibition overnight. Veronica Shaw wrote a quiet but devastating article in Design Monthly about the pitfalls of unbalanced creative partnerships, never mentioning Zane by name, but making it brutally clear who the visionary was. His real losses were deeper. His reputation in the small, insular design community was obliterated. His investors pulled out. I heard through a mutual friend that he had to sell his condo. The most painful image came 6 months later. I was walking through a high-end furniture showroom in Soho, scouting for ideas, and I saw him. He was wearing a tight-fitting black polo shirt with the store's logo, straightening cushions on a sofa. He was adjusting the work of others. My own renewal was quiet. I relaunched the collection under my own name, in a smaller, more intimate gallery. I built a small, loyal team. There's a peace that comes not from victory, but from control over your own work, your own story. A journalist asked me last week what the guiding vision was for my next project. I smiled. The vision was always documented, but now it's also free. My hands were finally my own again.